I guarantee you that any person that has the original 1959 in their collection is going to want this watch on principle. Longines released a heritage release of the 1959 Longines Legend Diver. This is not your regular modern Legend Diver, but a niche addition to the catalog that has some notable changes compared to the 39 and 42mm versions on offer today. I've had the opportunity to have hands-on. These are my thoughts. This watch is a retro homage to an original design made by Longines in 1959, the 7042. It's a relatively faithful recreation of a watch that was produced in the period where diving and dive watches were all the rage. Today, dive watches are just a style, and of the millions and millions of dive watches sold, very few likely ever actually go diving. But back in the 1950s and 60s, brand upon brand was looking for a way to design the perfect underwater tool watch. The compressor is one such solution to that challenge. The term compressor is derived from the case's ability to become more watertight under increasing water pressure. This feature is a result of the watch's ingenious case design, which incorporates a sealing method that becomes more effective as the surrounding pressure increases. Today, much like all other divers, the compressor style case is more of an aesthetic choice than a practical one. Instead of having the bezel outside of the glass, you have it inside, and this significantly changes the look and feel of the watch. Compressor style dive watches are not common largely for that reason. Most people will opt for a more traditional dive watch. So this is a niche product, but since the reintroduction of it in 2017, Longines have had a decent amount of success with the Legend Diver line. It's a fan favorite and it also moves a decent amount of product. Not as much as a Hydro Conquest, but for a compressor, it still does well for them. It's 42mm in diameter, 50.1mm lug to lug, 20mm lug width, 12.85mm thickness, L888 movement with 80 hours of power reserve, 300 meters of water resistance, black grain dial, painted ceramic numerals and indices, silvered sandblasted hands. It's a mesh bracelet with micro adjustment and an additional strap and exchange tool included for 3,400 Swiss francs. Compressor style watches are not hugely common, but they have been around for a long time. They hit different because of the simple fact that the bezel is under the crystal and part of the dial, and that changes everything. The watch face looks much bigger. It's a much more substantial watch on the wrist dial-wise, but it reads more like a dress watch than a dive watch. Think of a Hamilton Murph with an internal bezel. It might have two crowns, one to control the movement and one to control the bezel, but so much of this watch is dressy and formal and serious. And yet, in quotations, it's still a dive watch. This goes for the mesh bracelet as well. Mesh is a bit of a catch-all term because some mesh bracelets are full-on tool bracelets, whereas others are very much Milanese style bracelets that also come across as much more luxurious and sort of dressy. This watch is more Milanese than mesh. The dial is more dress than diver, but it is a diver. Either this speaks to you or it doesn't. Take off the mesh strap and throw on the included rubber strap, which is a tropic adjacent style, and it becomes more of an outdoor tool watch. But in the base configuration, it's a classy aesthetic than something you'd expect from something called a diver. It's also a big boy, 42mm, 50.1mm lug to lug. It's not Panerai, but I think Longines at some point admitted that their best-selling regular Legend Diver is 39mm, and there's a reason for that. The major changes from the regular Legend Diver are the faux Tina or the faux lume or the numerals, the triangle at 12 o'clock, and the hour indices. That and the mesh bracelet. The more old school rubber strap also, and for the bezel numerals that are slightly grayed out in color to them. What this does is what it's supposed to. Make the watch seem a little bit more old school, a little bit more retro, and slightly less dressy. And it works. The regular Legend Diver is modern through and through. This watch is a throwback, an homage to the original Legend Diver, specifically that 42mm model from 1959. If that was their mission, then it's mission accomplished. Now, another mission is to convert you to subscribers. There are cool people watching this video. They've subscribed. Why don't you want to be cool? Subscribe. Succumb to the peer pressure and support a middle-aged man that spends far too much time thinking about watches. Thanks. As for likes, I won't talk about it too much other than say that Longines at this price represent relatively good value in terms of build quality. You can get comparable build quality at a lower price in direct-to-consumer brands, but compared to most big brands with ADs and distribution channels, they are pretty much class-leading. I also appreciate the fact that this is a fairly faithful recreation of the original 1959 Legend Diver. This is a fan service and enthusiast watch, which for a brand like Longines, whose bread and butter is selling a lot of watches to a lot of people, just isn't strictly necessary. The mesh bracelet is awesome. The rubber strap is also really, really good. Dislikes. Honestly, not a big fan of the design. I would pick the regular Legend diver without the faux loom and without the 42mm in size. For the vast majority of customers, I would not recommend this version. It's too big, it's too photina, and in all honesty, it's a little bit pricey. The price over the regular 39mm isn't completely unreasonable. You get both the mesh bracelet and a rubber strap, plus the strap change tool, and 42mm is just a little bit more material that adds, as the Scottish say, a wee bit of cost. But I would get the regular 39mm and buy an aftermarket Tropic or FKM strap instead. It would still be cheaper. You have to really want the faux look and the mesh. If I did want the 42mm size and no date, then this one is probably the one I'd choose over the regular 42mm version, which has a lot of fume going on that I've never liked. But 9 times out of 10, I'd go for the 39mm version and not this retro version. At 42mm with a lug-to-lug over 50mm and relatively straight lugs, this watch also wears large. This is especially the case with the mesh bracelet, which does not have case-hugging end links, and the watch sits more over your wrist than on your wrist. It's not an issue on the rubber strap, but as a regular wearer of 40mm Panerais, this watch is not that at all, but you do need to test drive it to be sure that it's going to fit you. And this leads me to who it's for. It's for people that have a thing for retro callbacks and recreations. Not just modern reinterpretations, but watches that aim for as close to the original as possible. This is the 1 out of 10 situation where the regular standard compressor doesn't quite hit the sweet spot. The totality of the differences are not huge, but they add up to some very different offerings. It's modern versus old school, it's refined and unassuming versus present. It's versatile versus statement. As for these compressor-style watches in general, this line sells quite well for Longines, but I'm in no doubt that for every one Legend diver they sell, they are selling significantly more Hydro Conquests. Most regular, mainstream, middle-of-the-road customers do not pick the compressor case. You pick this case deliberately. You pick this case because all other divers to some extent feel derivative, and you pick it because you like all the perceived practicality of a diver, but in a much more suit-friendly package. It's not a dress watch, but it kind of is for you. As for alternatives, the premium version of this is the Jaeger-LeCoultre Polaris. 4 times the price, fume enamel dial, much more impressive movement, and an attention to detail that only brands like JLT offer. At this price, there aren't a lot of compressor watches. Fairer offer a watch, the Endeavour, that I've never had in hand. Fairer tend to make good watches, but I can't speak to wearability or fit. The case is also more of a cushion case, so it's a very different proposition. Baltic have a very affordable option. Dan Henry, I think, still do as well. So they're out there, but this design and this style is niche. It had a moment a few years back, but it's not mainstream by any stretch of the imagination. This watch isn't a big release. It's not the crowd-pleasing Hydro Conquest. It's in the grander scheme of Longines releases a small fish. I wouldn't buy it myself for the reasons I mentioned, but it's interesting specifically for those reasons. Importantly, it's a watch that a brand like Longines doesn't really need to make. It's a fan service watch, not meant to move tons and tons of product. But for some people, it will tug at the heartstrings and be an instant buy, while most people just walk past it and barely notice that it's different from the rest. And it gives me the opportunity to practice my B-roll. I'm not Adrian or Britt yet in the B-roll department. They are just better at that part than me, but hopefully I'm getting better at it. Let me know what you think. Do you agree that this is a niche release? Would you consider it? Share in the comments, like, subscribe. Cheers.